Good morning and welcome to Eurostat's webinar series. I'm Dean Vuletic, an Information and Communication Officer in Eurostat, and I'm your moderator for this webinar. Today we're going nuts for the nuts. We're talking about European regional statistics. With Eurostat's experts, we'll learn more about the nuts classification. Nuts being the abbreviation of the French term for the nomenclature of territorial units for statistics. We'll get other rich insights into regional statistics too, like why is comparing regional data often more informative than doing so with country data? We'll cover a variety of topics: demography, education, the labour market, the economy, the green and digital transition. And we'll even learn how to make our own statistical maps for regions. You'll also be able to directly ask our experts questions. Please send the questions to us via slido.com. The Slido code is #34890688. You can see the link here on the screen and on the Eurostat stream page. On Slido, you will also find a short survey to give us feedback on this webinar. Remember that this webinar is being recorded, so you'll be able to access it later on the Eurostat website. Now to our experts. It's a pleasure for me to introduce our first speaker, Viveka Palm, who is the Director of Sectoral and Regional Statistics in Eurostat.
So, thank you very much, Dean, and good morning to all the speakers and to the audience who joins us online to listen to the presentations on the regional statistics. So why do we need data at regional level, and how can we compare small EU states such as Luxembourg or Malta to the most populous ones like Germany or France? We know that comparing regional data is often more informative than national data. It can reveal the disparities and the similarities between the EU members or even within the EU countries themselves. This year, Eurostat celebrates 70 years. It's an anniversary for us, and it has been over 50 years since the regional statistics have been disseminated. The Eurostat Regional Statistical Yearbook package covers 13 topics now, and it publishes data for the 27 member states, the 4 EFTA countries, and the 8 candidate countries. So there's a rich book that will tell you what happens in the EU and outside. So during the webinar, the speakers will give fascinating insights into the lives of no less than 448 million people that are living in the EU, and also showing innovative visuals on a huge scale of topics, from demography to education, from the labor market, the economy, and also the environment. And you can learn what a statistical region is and how many levels it has. This is, of course, important for us to be able to show in the same manner for everyone. The innovative visuals will be presented in relation to the European Commission policy priorities. And in addition, there is a short demonstration on how to make your own statistical map. So thank you very much and enjoy the presentation.
Thank you for your introduction, Viveka. Now let's get into the nuts and bolts of the nuts. To do that, we have 2 Eurostat experts. Oliver Heiden is a statistical officer for regional and local classifications, and Reka Fodor is a statistical assistant and editor of the Eurostat Regional Yearbook that has been going for some 5 decades now. Oliver and Reka have a question for you. How much do you know about the regions of the European Union? Oliver, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dean. My name is Oliver Heiden. I work for Eurostat in the unit for regional statistics and geographical information, and I prepared some slides for you that I want to share with you. Let's jump right in the middle of it. This map shows the total population on 1st January 2022 by the size of bubbles, and the population change during the year 2021 by the colors of the bubbles. 2021 was a year in the middle of the pandemic. Here we see data on country level. It looks like the population slightly decreased in Italy and slightly increased in France. However, the difference between the sizes of some bubbles is enormous, and it's questionable if it really makes sense to compare, for instance, Luxembourg with Germany. If you look at the more detailed level, one can see that the bubble sizes get closer to each other. And you can see that there are big differences within countries. For instance, while most of parts in France population increased, this didn't seem to be the case for the area around Paris. As the bubbles get smaller, you see a more and more differentiated picture. It looks like in some parts of southern Italy, the population increased, in fact. Here we see around 1,200 bubbles. And there is hardly any country with a simple message when you go on that level of detail. Most of the countries show a colorful picture when we look at the population change in the year 2021. But how to grasp this complexity without getting confused? We need order. Well, this was done by my son when he was 3 years old. I discovered it by chance, and it gave me the idea that sorting or organizing must be a genuine human need, or at least a family trait. In any case, he created order in a chaos by classifying. That's what we are going to do as well. So again, what is so complicated? Besides having many regions in Europe, they mean different things around countries. For example, Länder in Germany or Gewesten Region in Belgium are rather big regions. Region in Italy or Länder in Austria are middle-sized regions. And Oblast in Bulgaria or Département in France are smaller regions. Therefore, Eurostat produced this hierarchical structure where we fill the gaps. We call this NUTS, Statistical Classification of Territorial Units. This way, we can compare regions of similar size. For example, on NUTS level 1, we compare Länder in Germany and Gewesten Region in Belgium with groups of Regioni in Italy and groups of Länder in Austria. On NUTS 2 level, we compare Regioni in Italy and Länder in Austria with group of Oblasti in Bulgaria or groups of Départements in France, and so on. Here is an overview of the rules. The NUTS is hierarchical. A higher level consists always of parts of the lower level. Thanks to this feature, data can be also aggregated upwards. It is stable over time, meaning that it cannot be changed all the time. It can be only touched every 3 years. This is for the sake of long time series. It is aligned to national administrative structures, which means that it always considers administrative divisions that are already in place. This is for the sake of data availability. And it uses population thresholds to ensure comparability for each NUTS level. This is the current valid NUTS version, NUTS 2021. The map shows the NUTS level 2. As you can see, the area of regions varies greatly across Europe, but this is a consequence of differences in population density. Remember, NUTS uses population and not surface area to define regions of comparable size. As you can see, NUTS regions are also defined in EFTA countries, here in pink, and for some of the candidates and potential candidates, in yellow. For those countries, there is no legal basis, but bilateral agreements between Eurostat and the relevant statistical office ensure that the rules of NUTS are applied. Finally, here is a typical application of the NUTS classification before I hand over to my colleague Reka, who will show you more data compared on the basis of NUTS. The map shows the gross domestic product per capita in purchasing power standards on NUTS level 2. This data normally used for defining eligibility for funding in the framework of cohesion policy. After all, around 40% of the EU budget is to support regional policy, and the allocation of funding from the ERDF and ESF Plus are defined on NUTS level 2. Just as a reminder, on the right-hand side, the variation within countries is huge. This is why we need regional data to see a better picture. With this, I hand over now to Reka.
Thank you, Oliver. My name is Reka Fodor, and I also work at Unit E4, Regional Statistics and Geographical Information Unit. I will continue the presentation with showing data at regional level that are closely linked to policy priorities. The first one I'm presenting is on employment rate 2022. This is a key indicator for several policy priorities. The European Pillar of Social Rights Action Plan, which targets to increase the EU's employment rate to 78% by 2030. 2023 was the European Year of Skills, which has also promoted to get the right skills for quality job. This Year of Skills provided a fresh impetus to reach this target. When you look at the map, you can immediately see that the EU average was 74.6%. This is a historical high. Previously, what you can see on the B swarm, you can see the 2020, 2021, and 2022 data. It shows that since COVID, the employment rate slowly but steadily increased, though there were certain regions where the increase was quicker, steeper than in the others. The highest regional employment rate was measured in Holland, which was followed by the Polish capital region, and then Utrecht in the Netherlands, and then the Swedish capital region of Stockholm. Though there are 3 regions in southern Italy where less than half of the population was employed. It was in Sicilia, Calabria, and Campania. You can see it on the map that all the regions that have the color of this dark green-blue color, which is the teal color, they have already reached the target. The greenish shades, they've already reached the target. Those who are colored in yellow, they still need to move forward with reaching the EU target. The next slide shows the gender employment gap in 2022. The gender employment gap is defined as the difference between the employment rates of men and women aged 20 to 64. The European Pillar of Social Rights Action Plan set a sub-goal of halving the EU's gender employment gap from its initial level, which in 2019 was 11.7 percentage points. It shall reach 5.8 points until 2030. In 2022, as you can see it on the map, the gender employment gap was 10.7 percentage points. So there was an improvement towards ensuring gender equality. It is also an SDG 5 goal, a sustainable development goal. So looking at the map, you can see that those regions who have the shade of yellow and gold, they already reached this target. Analyzing the map in more details, you can immediately spot 2 regions with the shade of gold, where the female employment rate was slightly higher. It is in southern Finland and the Lithuanian capital region. On the other end, there are very high level of gender employment gap in those regions which have the color of teal. These are concentrated more in Greece, Italy, and Romania. The highest gaps were recorded in the region of central Greece and in Italy. They were more than 30 percentage points. The next, I'm going to show you this video about the employment rate also. This is from the Region in Europe interactive edition. And there you can zoom in and see all how the regions have different employment rate gaps with male and female population. The last one is showing the value for Puglia. The next slide is going to be the tertiary educational attainment compared with the highly skilled employed people. So a strategic framework from European cooperation in education and training towards the European education era and beyond concerns tertiary educational attainment. Tertiary educational attainment is short cycle tertiary education. It's a bachelor level of education, master level, and doctoral level of education. EU also has a target, which means that 45% of the young adults between 25 to 34 should have tertiary educational attainment. As you can see, there is also a wide variety. Here, those regions who already reached the target have the color of green and blue. The highest values are this darkest teal color, and those who still need to catch up have the yellowish, goldish shades. In 2022, more than 2/5 of this age group had the tertiary level of educational attainment. And at the top end of the distribution, there was the Lithuanian capital region with 73.6%. But all the other capital regions, you can see there, the Romanian, Hungarian, the Polish, Lithuanian, Czech, Slovak, French, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, they've also had reached 60%. So all the darkest shades of this teal color. Those regions where you can see that it's lighter shades of yellow or this goldish yellow, they might be either rural regions or they might be regions who are specialized in vocational educational programs. This map is compared to the highly skilled workers. Highly skilled workers are essential to modern economies, driving innovation, productivity, and growth. They are employed as managers, professionals, technicians, and associate professionals. You can compare the two maps, and you can see that on those regions that there is a high level of tertiary educational attainment people, there also the highly skilled employed people value is also high. So you can see that capital regions are standing out from that map too. The next slide is linked to the digital transformation. The policy priority is the Europe fit for the digital age. And within the Commission, it is determined to make Europe's digital decade, which means we aim to improve Europe's performance towards its 2030 objectives, which means that we have to focus on digital skills, infrastructure, and digitalization of businesses and public services. It also has several sub-goals. One of them is to have basic digital skills, like 80% of the EU population should have basic digital skills by 2030, which is currently at 59%. However, if we look at this infographic, we can see that there is a digital divide in the EU, because the infographic shows that across the EU, the share of people aged 16 and 74 that had never used the internet was 7%, but the highest regional shares were recorded in the southern regions of Greece, Italy, Portugal, and then in Bulgaria. For example, in Greece, you can see that in Kentriki, Elada, it's more than 20% of the people. There can be several reasons behind not using the internet. It can be either lack of skills, lack of opportunity, or the cost, but it can have some social demographic characteristics, such as age or location or educational level or income issues. And then we can go to the green transition. This map is the Cooling Degree Days map, and it is linked to several policy priorities that focus on the climate change and on the clean energy. It is linked to the European Green Deal, the Next Generation EU, the Make It Green initiative, also to the Sustainable Development Goal 7, which is on affordable and clean energy, or the Sustainable Development Goal 13, which is to take urgent actions to combat climate change and its impact. Cooling Degree Day is a weather-based technical index which is designed to describe the energy requirement of the building. So the average temperature rose across EU, and the demand for cooling the buildings increased during especially the hot summer days. As we can look at the timeline under the map, it shows that the EU average, starting from the 1992 value, doubled until 2022. But we also know that since we started measuring it in 1979, it has already been tripled. The highest values were measured in Malta, Cyprus, and in Extremadura, Spain. You can see that I've put the Cyprus value on the map too. These two base forms show the age of the farm managers, and this is linked to the new Common Agricultural Policy, which seeks to ensure a sustainable future for the European farmers. And one of the 10 objectives is the generational renewal. The agricultural sector is characterized by slow generational renewal and high average age of farm managers. The data comes from the 2020 agricultural census. And in 2020, only approximately 12% of the farm managers in the EU were aged less than 40 years, while 1/3 of them were over the age of 65. So the highest proportion of young farm managers were recorded in the regions of France, Austria, and Poland, while the oldest one were in 3 regions of Portugal, Algarve, Centro, and Norte. They were more than half of the farm managers over the 65-year-old category. And all these maps and graphs were coming from the Regional Yearbook, which is a package together with the Regions in Europe Interactive Edition. And if you would like to see the maps of the Regional Yearbook in an interactive way, you can click on the Statistical Atlas. And there was one graph that Oliver was showing, which was from the Regions and Cities Interactive tool. And these are the links to our publications. So if you would like to know more, our colleagues will post them on a Slido, and you can download them or click on them or browse through these publications. And thank you for your attention. And now back to Dean.
Thank you to Oliver and Reka. I certainly learned a lot from you about how the NUTS regions are made. And now let's learn about how to make statistical maps. Let me introduce Michael Harrop, a geographic information system consultant in Eurostat. Michael will give us an introduction to the image tool and teach us how to make our own statistical maps. Take it away, Michael.
Good morning. Now we're going to talk about image, which stands for the Interactive Map Generator. This is a browser-based tool which is available from the URL below. Image has one main function, and that is to make maps from the NUTS regulation with regional and national statistics of the type that you see on Eurostat's website, publications, or social media channels. So now I will just quickly give you a demonstration of the tool itself. This is the page that you'll see when you first open the tool. The tool is available in all languages of the European Commission. The first step to make a map is to add some data. There are 2 ways to do this. You can upload your own data set. This is an Excel or CSV file, where the first column are the NUTS codes and the second column are the values. Or you can add data directly from the Eurostat database. You can search by NUTS coverage. You can do a text search, or you can take a predefined data set. So for now, we'll just take gross domestic product. And you'll see straight away the data is brought in. We have a map. It's being classified. A color scheme has been applied. Because we've used the database, some text has been added. At any time, we can view a histogram of the data distribution, or we can view the table. We can change the NUTS level, and you'll see the map will change immediately. But we'll stay with NUTS 3 because that's the most detailed data set we have. We can change the year, and depending on the data set, we can change the actual indicator. The next step is to choose a map template. So we have several map templates. We have our A4 templates, which are used for print publications. We have our social media templates, which are designed for websites or social media. We have our country-specific templates, so a template for each country in the NUTS or stats regions. And we have a world map template. So for today, we'll just take our new social media template. And then we'll move on to the next step in the process, which is to select our map type. We have several map types. So the top two are CloudPath maps. These are basically the same. One is using colors, one is using textures. We have proportional symbol maps. This is when you're showing a total rather than a normalized data set. So if we were showing total GDP per region, we would want to use a proportional symbol. And we have a categorical map type. We'll wait for when it's not stats, so to speak, it's more categories of data. So the most common type of agriculture per region, for example. But today, as you have a normalized data set, it's euro per inhabitant rather than total euros. We'll stay with the default. The next step is to choose a color scheme. We have a number of color schemes, all of which have been checked for accessibility and color blindness. We have sequential and diverging color schemes. So sequential when you want to show high to low, diverging when you want to show, say, a change, positive or negative. So where GDP is going up and where GDP is going down. In this case, we're showing essentially high to low. So we want to stay with sequential. You can change the color scheme very easily. Just click on the one you want and the map will update automatically. As I'm from Eurostat, we will stay with our Eurostat default color scheme. And then we move on to the next step, and that is class breaks. So how you classify the data will have a huge impact on what the map tells people. So by default, we have Jenks natural breaks. We have other options. So we have equal interval, we have user defined, and we have quantile. And you'll see that as you change method, the map is automatically updated to reflect what you've chosen. So generally speaking, we always try and encourage that you want to sort of show a bit of regional variation. So if you took the default Jenks, you see that a lot of the eastern part of the map is all kind of the same color. If we take quantile, we get a bit more variation. Obviously, we could then tweak this by user-defined values. But for now, this is a quick demonstration. We'll stay with quantile. Then we have the text. So you want to give the map a title, a subtitle if possible, a legend title, a footnote, and a source. So we might want to change the subtitle to be this, and maybe just have the legend title as just euros. But it's all up to you when you make a map. We have an option to add some map labels. So we can add the names of the countries or just the codes. We can add the C names around Europe. We have additional settings here where you can further refine the map. So we can change the legend style, for example. If you're from one of the European institutions, you can choose your logo. If you're external to that, then this option is disabled. We can add a map graticule. We can add a little coastal margin, which adds a little blur effect around the coast. We can change the backgrounds and we can add a little dark theme. Then we have our map checklist. It's always good to go through and just have a quick check of your map before you download it. Do I have the correct color scheme? Do I have the correct map type? Is my data classified? in a useful way? Is it telling the story that I wanted to tell? So before you download it, just have a quick recheck and make sure everything's as it should be. And then the final step is to download your map. We can give it a name, so GDP. We can download a configuration file. So this in effect saves the map as an Excel sheet, which you can then edit in Excel. You can change the values, you can change the text, and then you can re-upload it under the edit existing map. We can download a PDF, download a PNG, an SVG, where you can actually make some edits to the graphics. And we can download the map as a HTML, which retains this interactivity. So for example, here in this news item, we will see a map has been embedded and it's retained the hover over effect, so you can see the values. In this case, we've actually used a diverging color scheme because we're showing positive and negative change, so where population is growing and where it is shrinking. Or we can download all options. Then we can have an option to upload a previously created map or to upload several previously created maps. And then we have a help section, so a bit of advice on each step of the process. We have a help file, we have a video demonstration, some training exercises, some sample input files, a more wide-ranging presentation on cartographic principles, and then you'll have links to contact us either directly if you're from one of the European institutions, or you'll get a link to the Eurostat help desk. So we hope you find this tool useful, and we hope you have a go. And we welcome any questions and feedback on the tool, as we're always trying to improve it. So thank you for your time. Goodbye.
Thank you, Michael, for giving us those technical and creative perspectives. The NUTS has given us so much food for thought that I think it's now time to invite our audience to ask questions. Remember that you can send us the questions via slido.com. The code is #34890688. If we don't manage to answer all of your questions now, we'll follow up and send you answers. As part of the question and answer session, Reka and Oliver will take the stage together with Eurostat's Theodora Brandmüller and Joseph Davis. Theodora is the Deputy Head of Unit for Regional and Urban Statistics, and Joseph is a Geographic Information System Programmer. These four experts are ready to answer your questions. So remember, slido.com, #34890688. Let's start with our first question, which is, how do you decide which statistics get measured or monitored on a regional level and for which there is only national data? Theodora, would you like to answer that?
Yes, thank you very much, Dean. So actually the decision is taken by the legislations. So to say, we follow the legislation, but there are practically two key principles to keep in mind. What is needed, so what is the policy need, and what is the feasibility. So there are several policies that address regional development, territorial development, or issues that have a clear regional implications. So of course, in these domains, it is essential that regional data is available. So there is a very strong policy need to provide this data, and this is the data that you show a sample of in the presentation by Reka, and you can find more details in on the Eurostat website. On the other hand, we also have to keep in mind feasibility. So of course, certain information would be nice to have at a very detailed geographical level, but it's simply not feasible due to cost reasons mostly, or also due to methodological reasons. There are certain phenomena which makes no sense to collect at a very small, for a very small geographical unit. So that would be the short answer.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that answer, Theodora. Now we have a question on one of the charts that was shown the bee swarm chart. Reka, if I could ask you to explain something, please. How do you read on the right-hand side the chart with the vertical cluster of points?
If I may, I would like to share my screen because it's easier to explain. So bee swarms, all the bee swarms are interactive. Can you see my screen? Am I sharing? Can you see? So the bee swarms are interactive, and the one I think they thought about was the employment rate. Maybe they, the person who asked the question, maybe he or she was thinking about the trend, how I was reading these lines. So it's very easy because you just hover over. Here you can see all the regions by NUTS2 level. You can even select a country if you are interested, let's say only the Austrian values, then those are highlighted in yellow, and you just hover over and it even writes the values for 2020, 2021, 2022. But any dot, you can see it on this interactive bee swarm. You just hover over and it tells you all the values. So this was the trend I think they wanted to know, because that's where we had these horizontal lines. But as I showed before, the male-female part also is, how to say, very visible. You can select any other countries, for example, so, or just a region, and then you just, as I mentioned, read the values because it's there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for explaining that, Reka. Now, again, we have some questions about the maps. So, Joseph, if I could ask you to answer this one. One of our viewers is inquiring whether they can zoom into a specific region on the map template and just print or export that part. Is that possible?
Thank you, Dean. So in Image, we have 3 different geographic extents. So you have the European extent, we have fixed templates for each individual country, and you have a world map. So you can't adjust custom extents. So the image tool is designed in a way to reduce user mistakes, essentially. So we don't allow users to freely move the map extent. This is to avoid maps that have been created in the past, such as maps of Greece that have Castellarizo missing. So we restrict that as much as possible, but the exported maps themselves can be adjusted in a way if there is a specific need to allow it to pan and zoom. So I hope that answered the question.
Thank you, Joseph. And just another question while we're on that topic. Can the colors for the classes be customized?
So this ties in with the previous point I made. So we always strive to limit the amount of errors a user can make, and this also includes color choice. Color choice in cartography is quite important. So all the color palettes we have in Image are tested for color blindness, for accessibility. So we try and restrict the color palettes used in map making as much as possible to ensure that they are meeting our standards. So it's not possible in Image, but if you export the SVG, you could replace the values yourself manually if there is ever a specific need.
Thank you, Joseph. Now, a question on how data is collected at the regional level. Theodora, if I could give this question to you, what are the main difficulties that you face when collecting data at the regional level, and how do you collect it?
Yes, so of course the difficulty comes from the number of regions, so to say. So if we collect data at a member states level, that is 27. If we collect data at the so-called NUTS level 3 regions, which Oliver presented, that is more than 1,000 regions. So of course the amount of work is just exponentially larger if you collect data at regional level. And then if we look at the different sources of statistics, most of the data is coming either from surveys or from administrative sources. And when it comes to surveys, of course, sample size has its limits. And that hinders us to provide some statistics at a detailed geographical level. It's simply the sample size is not large enough to make reliable high quality statistics for example, for the NUTS level 3 regions. For in these surveys, we usually stay at the NUTS level 2 regions. But when it comes to administrative sources, it can be easier. But of course, there we have to keep in confidentiality, which also comes with a small number of observations for a small territorial level. So these are, I would say, in brief, our main concerns.
Thank you, Theodora. Now, another question about the image tool, which seems to have captured the imaginations of so many of our participants. Is the source code for the image tool available somewhere, Joseph?
Thank you, Dean. That's because it's a brilliant tool. So the source code for the website itself is not publicly available, but Image uses open source components. So essentially the building blocks of Image are all open source. It uses EUI, the Europa Components library, for its user interface, which is completely open source, and Eurostat Map, a JavaScript library created for map making by us, JISCO in-house, which is completely open source and can be found on the Eurostat GitHub website. So the building blocks are open source, but the code of the website is not currently open source, but it is something we're looking to open in the near future.
Thank you for that, Joseph. Now, a question on where the NUTS regions can be downloaded, and do you have data at an even more detailed level, like the level of communes or census areas? Oliver, would you like to answer this question?
Yes, thank you, Dean. Thank you for the question. Well, the NUTS, as I mentioned in my slides, is actually in legislation. So if you go on the web page Eurolex that collects all the legislation, you will find the NUTS regions a very, very, very long table. And you can also have it in PDF, but that's probably not what the user is looking for. You can have you have tables on our web pages with the NUTS regions. And also we have another space from the JISCO team where we have the boundaries of NUTS regions, where you will find shape files and basically geometrical information. When we come with to the question whether how we can go below the NUTS 3 in that case, and whether we have also data on communes or census areas. Well, we have some data on communes. We have basically the status of communes for every year and basic total population data, but that's not really official data, so we only use it for comparison reasons. And then, of course, every 10 years after the census, we have census data, which is shown via Census Hub, where the application that is running on Eurostat web page actually goes to the member states pages and fetches the data from there. But we do have data, yes, also for municipalities.
Thank you for explaining that, Oliver. Now, Reka, I have a question for you. Do you monitor sustainable development goals on the regional level?
Yes, we do. And in my presentation, I've already mentioned quite a few, but I would like to share again my screen, which leads to this Eurostat website. This is the opening page of Eurostat. And if you're interested in more details, what SDG goals we have at NUTS level, then you can go to the statistical themes part and then just click to the Sustainable Development EU policy themes. And then here you click on the database and you can find the breakdown by regions, NUTS 2 regions, what SDG goals we have data for. I've counted, we have approximately 10 SDGs out of 17. So if you open the database, you can see, for example, for the SDG number 1, no poverty, we already have 4 different indicators, but you can also click through all the others where we collect data at NUTS level. Thank you.
Thank you, Reka. Now, Joseph, going back to this tool, to these maps, I have some more questions for you. Can we visualize values with country labels on the map at the NUTS 0 level for a document?
Thanks, Dean. So yes, in Image we have labeling capabilities, so you can add country name labels, you can add country code labels, you can add labels for the seas, you can add statistical value labels at net zero level as well. So there's quite a wide range of labeling capabilities in Image, if needs be. But that specifically for NUTS level is available.
Okay, thank you, Joseph. And another viewer is asking if they can make maps that include the United Kingdom if they have the data.
Yes, so thanks, Dean. This is quite a common question. So it is possible. You can add data for the UK to your maps if you have it, assuming that they are coded to the NUTS codes. Yes, it is possible across all NUTS levels.
Great, thank you for that. And one more for you right now, Joseph. Is the data entered into the map tool available publicly, or is it coded in such a way that only the user can read or see the data, the map?
So if you're uploading data, it will only be available on your web browser. It's saved to the client, so you don't have to worry about data being uploaded or anything. That will stay on your computer. And with regards to the data that is fed in through the database, that is retrieved using the Eurostat API with a direct link to the database. But anything you upload is only stored on your browser.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Joseph. And now a question for Oliver, going back to his presentation and about how the NUTS regions are made. When do these regions get redefined or redrawn?
Thank you, Dean. Thank you for this question. Well, these regions can get redrawn or redefined every 3 years. So there is a legal base and it doesn't allow us to change it more frequently than every 3 years. And currently we have the NUTS 2021. From 1st of January next year, we have the next version, which will be NUTS 2024. And why they get redrawn or redefined, it's mainly because of administrative changes in the countries. You wouldn't think, but quite often it happens when you talk about 27 countries that one or other country moves a municipality over a border of a region, and then this is already a change of NUTS and would lead to a different code, sometimes also a different name, and of course a different territory. And that's important for us because we refer them to a different geographical entity. So that is basically the most usual type of NUTS change. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that, Oliver. Now, we are waiting for more questions from our participants. So remember, you can send us to us via slido.com, hashtag 34890688. Now, another question regarding the map. This one goes to you then, Joseph. The map that you showed us could potentially also be a world map, right?
Yes, thanks, Dean. It seems people love maps. I think that's something we've learned today. So yeah, as I said before, Image has templates at 3 geographic extents. So you can have the European extent, you can have individual countries, or you can have a world map. The world map is also designed in a way that it limits the amount of mistakes a user could make when making maps. So, we've determined the appropriate map projection and a whole load of other designs in mind to make sure that the maps being produced by this tool are publication ready. Of course, there is decision making required on behalf of the map maker. We don't want to give the impression that this is a tool that can, you throw your data at it and it will give you a map without any decisions being made at all. There is a certain amount of decisions that need to be made by the user, and we do try and guide them. I would always recommend having a look at the checklist first before exporting your maps. But yeah, to answer the question, world maps are possible in Image. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much for that. We are awaiting your questions. Slido.com, hashtag 34890688. We still have a bit of time to answer them, so feel free to send them in. And in the meantime, I have another question for Oliver, because I remember when Croatia entered the EU, I'm from Croatia, in 2013, there was a lot of discussion in the media about which regions would constitute a NUTS region. And these regions didn't always match the historical regions of Croatia. So could you maybe talk a bit about that? Give us again some of the basics about what constitutes a NUTS region, and is there sometimes controversy when these regions don't match historical regions in a country?
Yes, thank you, Dean. So the NUTS says that when we allocate the 3 levels of NUTS 1, NUTS 2, and 3, we should first look at administrative division in the country. So the breakdown that already exists in the country should be our starting point. This is sometimes exists, like I showed on my map that on my slide, that actually for Germany, for instance, you have the Länder that fit quite well, NUTS 1, and you have the Kreis, Landkreis and Stadtkreis that fit quite well, NUTS level 3. For other countries are different. For some countries, they don't fit any of those. And we have to build up everything from smaller local administrative units. I don't remember exactly, to be honest, what was the case in Croatia. But as I said, we always have to look first at existing politically existing administrative divisions. And then we fill the gaps. So that's for the case of Germany, for instance, NUTS 2, because there is nothing that we can use. For other countries, we have to fill often 2 levels, and that's then has to, of course, be aligned with the population thresholds. So there we always say that the groups that we create from smaller regions, they have to fit into population thresholds, and that's very important. Otherwise, it wouldn't be comparable across EU. Is that answering your question?
That is certainly answering my question, Oliver. Thank you very much for that. It's always interesting. I'm a historian, so from a historical perspective, to also see how these NUTS regions are created. Now, this is your last chance to send us any questions that you might have, any questions about the NUTS, about regional statistics, about how our Eurostat experts do their jobs. So please send them in, slido.com, hashtag 348906888. We're waiting for more of your questions. We have the last minutes of our webinar. And in the meantime, I'll give our speakers a chance to say anything that they might wish to add, anything that they have been inspired by through the questions that we've received so far. Would anyone like to add anything?
So I think there was a question on downloading geospatial data that I'd like to address. So
yeah, of course, you can add to the response that was given earlier. Thanks, Joseph. Yeah.
Thanks, Dean. So yes, all the geospatial data that is available in the map making tool is available on the GISCO website, on the Eurostat website. So you can download each level of the NUTS regions. You can download local administrative units, the LAUs. You can download the country regions and boundaries data sets. So there is a wide range of publicly available geospatial data on the GISCO website.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that information, Joseph. Now, with that, we can wrap up our seminar on regional statistics and let you go and play with that map, because I think a lot of the participants here really do want to get to doing that right now. So thank you very much to our speakers, to Viveka, Reka, Oliver, Michael, Theodora and Joseph, and to you, our viewers, our participants, for joining us and sending questions. Please also participate in our feedback survey via slido.com. There you can also find the address to contact our multilingual user support if you have further questions. And join us for our next seminar on macroeconomic statistics on the 4th of December at 10 a.m. I won't have the chance to make so many puns like I did with the word nuts, but I hope that the next person to host will find something to play with when it comes to macroeconomic statistics. So we do hope to see you again then. For now, from Eurostat in Luxembourg, I'm Dean Vuletic, wishing you a wonderful day.